Um, Good morning, everyone who's here already. We will get going as soon as we're ready. Oh, numbers are going up, so that's good to see. Oh yeah, okay. Um, so it is 10 o'clock and we're missing a presenter, but I'm not sure if we have got a Sandy in our list of participants, and I'm not sure if that's a Sandy that we need in here. So if Sandy Toogood, you're in the list of participants, you could let me know in the chat and I will bring you in as a panelist. So I don't want to bring in a random person called Sandy. But there's no surname next to your name. Okay, here we go. It is Sandy. I'll bring you in, Sandy. Oh, the chat is disabled, so I'll look at that as well, folks. So if you're trying to type into the chat, I vaguely remember something about that last year. We figured out a way of making it accessible. So let me just first of all bring our presenter in. Here we go. I just didn't want to promote you to a panelist if you were the wrong Sandy. So that could have been an awkward situation. So you should be on your way. Hi, Sandy, can you hear me now? Are you able to? Okay. I'm doing that. Around with the settings.
Yeah, we're just working through settings at the
Oh,
moment.
fabulous.
Unmuting. Start
Good,
my
good start.
video. There we
Yeah, thank goodness
go. We made it.
you made it. That's
Yeah.
so. Obviously, I'll hand over to you very shortly, Sandy, for the showering and
Super.
all things. But let me just open for those people here. As soon as you start speaking, I'll start fiddling around and figuring out how we can make the chat work.
Okay. Thanks.
People are able to interact with us. We have got the question and answer feature if people want to ask questions as they're going through
Yeah.
the talk. Me and my colleague Sandra, who's also here, will have a keep an eye on. Hopefully you can see my screen. We've got the link for donating to the Newman Trust. For those
Yes.
who weren't in our intro session just now, we're hoping to raise a little bit of money for this wonderful organisation called the Newman Trust, who run holidays for young people with disabilities. It costs about £8,000 to put on one of these holidays. We'd really love it if we could help a little bit with their efforts. So use the QR code or the link that's on the screen, and donate what you can. It's a free conference, so we really appreciate anything that you're able to donate. So I'll stop sharing that a moment and come back to faces. Good morning, Sandy. Thanks very much for
Good
joining us
morning.
and being with us.
Thank you for having me. Yes. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome. So Sandy's here to present about his PBAS app. I will make sure, obviously, that the sharing is enabled, and I will hand over to you to take the floor. Over to you, Sandy.
Okay. Good to go. Thank you very much. So I'm going to click share screen and entire screen. Share. There we go. This one. Maximize this one. And hopefully you're seeing my PowerPoint slide now. Okay, so
You can see it, Paddy.
okay. All right, that's super. Thank you very much. Okay, so good morning. My name is Sandy Toogood. I'm here to talk about positive behavioural and active support, and to share with you some information and insights into this app that we've developed over the last 5 years. I'm going to start by covering a bit of background and just reviewing with you some of the underpinning concepts around active support and PBS and some of the constructs that have informed the development of the app. A little kind of swoop into the digital age. I'm not going to explore that in any depth, but then on to the substance, talk a little bit about the routines and rhythms of life and where some of these ideas originated, and how routines and rhythms can be extremely helpful and functional for individuals for the individuals that we support in services. A little bit about skills teaching and functional assessment, a few comments on prompting feedback, performance feedback in particular, and then I'm going to jump in and show some of the app's features with a live demonstration. So let's hope everything there goes the way it's been set up. I'm going to leave time for questions and discussion. If there's you've got the Q&A enabled, so if there's an issue or an observation or a point for discussion that you want to pick up in the moment, then please fire that through. And Hannah, are we able to field those questions and relay them to me, because I can't see them on the screen at the moment?
Yeah, myself and Sandra, who my colleague, keeping an eye on the questions and the chat. So
Yeah.
we'll field them. We'll save them for the end.
Yeah.
Go through them. So we'll leave a bit of time towards the end to answer.
Okay, that's super. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with what we all already know, that PBS is a framework. It's described very amply by Gore et al. 2013, and then revised, updated, and refreshed in the 2022 definition, which kind of reflects the fact that PBS is an evolving, dynamic phenomenon. It's not a static thing, but there are some core anchors that, or core fundamental principles that anchor PBS, and the evolution and development of PBS is around those core anchors. And some of those are in regard to PBS being an evidence-based approach, an approach that uses evidence in decision making, that it's multi-component, has multiple perspectives, and operates at multiple levels. So it's quite in many ways a complex construct, but one that once operationalized delivers desirable outcomes using processes and procedures that are culturally valued and socially valued. So we avoid, for example, the use of restrictive practices, non-aversive practices, and punishment-based procedures. The other distinguishing feature of PBS is the extent to which it's a synthesis of values, and those values were first expressed in normalization theory, and technologies that were first expressed in certain aspects of applied behavior analysis. So in the Gore paper, we talk about rights and values, we talk about process and strategy, and we talk about theory and evidence-based. And it's the point at which these three areas intersect that define PBS. If we put some flesh onto those bones, then we see that we have this person-centered orientation. We use approaches that are constructional and lead to self-determination. By constructional, what we mean is that we're adding to what people can do rather than taking away from what people can do. So in technical terms, we're talking about building repertoire rather than suppressing it. The working model is based on partnership and support. And as I mentioned a minute ago, we seek to eliminate the use of aversive, restrictive, and abusive practices. In terms of theory and evidence base, we have this biopsychosocial model. So we're able to seek a synthesis of explanatory models that work at the level of the individual in terms of explaining or giving insight and understanding to the sorts of things that we need to address in order to support behavior change and learning and development. And in regard to learning and experience, we use behavioral approaches because they have a very strong evidence-based, but there's a synthesis of other theoretical perspectives within PBS. And so we draw on a kind of a multi-professional model as well. In terms of process and strategy, evidence-informed, we're seeking to develop high quality environments for people. That's physical and social. We'll come back to that in a moment. We have bespoke assessment procedures, and I've just noticed a typo there, so just disregard that. Multi-component and personalized programs of support. And we critically want to address the issue of implementation, and associated with implementation, assessing the effects of intervention through continuous monitoring and evaluation. So the principal outcomes in PBS are seeking the enhancement or an increase in this broadly defined area of quality of life, and simultaneously decreasing the occurrence or the instances of behaviors that challenge. Now, each of these serve as an intervention and an outcome, and we can explain that using this little diagram here. So wherever we're able to increase quality of life, we expect to see reductions in the frequency, intensity, or duration of behavior that's likely to present a challenge. And wherever we successfully assist in the reduction of challenging behavior, we see concomitant changes in quality of life. So they're both, each is both the target and an outcome, an intervention and an outcome. PBS, how we apply the framework is at a systems level. So systems level really is thinking about how we design and deliver services, and that's multi-layered, of course. So we have population-based design and delivery mechanisms right down to the level of individuals. And for some people, it's about building bespoke packages of support that are tailored precisely to the needs of that person. And so that overlaps with the other delivery mechanism, which is the person-centered support. But the person-centered support, for some people, needs to be quite carefully planned, delivered, evaluated, and monitored. Now, in the days before PBS had acquired its what you might call its identity, before it had a name and a framework for defining what it is, there were 4 areas of service that were really ripe for development. First is early identification and prevention. So this is about being able to spot behavior that is likely to develop to the extent that it would become challenging in the context of service delivery early on, and to prevent that development trajectory from occurring. Second is crisis prevention and management, and this is the extent to which services have the capacity and capability to spot crises early and intervene before the crisis becomes catastrophic in terms of a person's life, resulting very often in placement breakdown. And one of the learnings in the early years is that challenging behavior was the major predictor of crisis and leading to placement breakdown in services. The third area was technical support, and this is about having a framework for, first of all, understanding, a conceptual framework for understanding, for describing and understanding the mechanisms that evoke and maintain behavior. And then having the tools to be able to design person by person intervention strategies that alter those risk factors in favor of better outcomes for the individual. And the fourth area was broadly called placement development. And this was really about designing accommodation for individuals that create opportunities for them to live ordinary lives, a life like any other. And so this was indicating the need for residential services to be scaled to the size of ordinary housing, for ordinary housing to be physically located in communities, and for those communities to be accessible to individuals. In terms of day services and education for adults, it would be vocational and higher education opportunities. And for children and young people, it would be accessing either integrated education or inclusive education or special education in ways that contacted communities. Now, when we move toward PBS, we have this framework that I'm sure you'll all be familiar with now, which is the kind of, sometimes it's called response treatment, but it's a kind of tiered or layered approach, where we have universal supports, targeted supports, and focused supports. There are various ways that these levels are described, but essentially the bulk of the support to individuals comes at the level of universal support. And universal supports really are characterized by being available to all of us. It's those sorts of things that are available to all of us and are casting in terms of enhancing the quality of the lived experience. Now, this kind of connects with the prevention that we were just talking about just now. And we can think about prevention in at least two ways. One is in the context of lifespan, and the other is in what you might call the situational context, or the momentary context, where we are at any point in time. So in regard to lifespan, there really the strategies for prevention would be cast at the level of populations and systems, but then there will be, for some people, a need to think about prevention in regard to person-centered frameworks. So what do we mean by the population and systems levels? Well, this is about taking an approach to service design and delivery that builds opportunity, that supports learning and development, and that enhances people's prospects. And Maggie Hoger, if you know Maggie, she's been doing quite a lot of work in preschool and early school year environments. And one of her arguments that is very persuasive is that we need to be investing in PBS in schools at universal level as a principal kind of prevention strategy, and that those benefits will be realized in the longer run when our preschool and school age children become adults in the next 10, 15, 20 years. The other aspect of prevention is situational. So this is kind of the momentary manifestation of prevention. It's personalized, and it's in very often terms of environmental design. And here, you know, we can think about Peter McGill's recent work on capable environments, and Rob Horner very helpfully characterized PBS in terms of rendering challenging behavior as ultimately being ineffective, inefficient, and irrelevant. And we'll talk a little bit about what the mechanisms for that might be now. So enhancing quality of life really works by neutralizing the environmental and situational contexts that have a history of evoking challenging behavior. So on the right-hand side, I'm saying here that enrichment modifies things like the task demand environment, which evokes behavior that is maintained by escape and avoidance. So if the demand if the demands in the environment are too great for the individual and reach a point where they are able or capable of evoking behavior, the behavior will be strengthened and maintained by escape or avoidance from those situations. For social situations, social interactions, sometimes this is about obtaining opportunities to interact with people, and sometimes it's about terminating or avoiding interaction with other people. And similarly to the task demand environment, environments that are not balanced from the individual's point of view in terms of opportunities for social interaction are likely to evoke behavior that will either obtain or remove. And for some people, challenging behavior is going to be the most efficient and most effective way of doing that. Then we have the tangible environment. The tangible environment is really everything that you can see, feel, touch, and includes things like food and drink, but also activity materials. So here it's generally access to and control of opportunities to use those materials or consume those food and drink items. And very often the situation here is that people are in a state of, as it were, deprivation. There are not enough opportunities. And so behavior that brings a person into contact with those opportunities will be strengthened. And then we have the sensory environment, which is either too much or too little sensory stimulation in the environment. And behavior that modifies that, either brings it down or brings it up to a level, is likely to be strengthened as well. So going back to the enhancing quality of life, we can view the mechanism for change as being a neutralizing effect, neutralizing the conditions that are associated with the occurrence and the strengthening of behavior that's likely to be experienced as challenging. We can call this sometimes referred to as the motivative operation or a motivating contingency. And the logic is that when these are not present in the environment, then the behavior that it has a history of evoking is less likely to occur. And over time, what we would see is the establishment of a new learning history. So that this is quite a challenging concept, really, but because time moves in one direction, time's arrow moves forward, never backward. You can never, as it were, unexperience something or unlearn something. What we do observe is that as we encounter new situations in life, our learning history gradually changes shape, and therefore the historical association between a current situation that evokes behavior and what used to evoke it changes, and in this regard, it becomes weaker. Right. Hopefully, you're still with me on this quick tour. But when we think about qualities of intervention now, there are many, but one of them is the robustness of intervention, and another is durability. So by robustness, we mean that the intervention has to be able to stand up to scrutiny, and it has to have a high level of effectiveness in the real world setting. So it's not a theoretical or lab-based experimental design to test the nature of a contingency. The robustness is that this framework of thinking and acting in regard to the occurrence and non-occurrence of behavior works in a real world situation. The second is durable. So this is about the effects maintaining over time. And we all know that there are some particular challenges associated with keeping things going. It's one thing to make an initial change, but then keeping things going over time presents a different, very often different set of challenges, and we have to think about maintenance separately from intervention, although they're obviously connected. A third thing is affordability. So whatever intervention or service design package we're considering, it has to be affordable, and particularly in the current economic climate where resources are becoming scarcer and scarcer. And we've been through these cycles many times in recent history, cycles of constrained and constrictions in resources, and very often necessity is the mother of invention, and so we find that we are able to innovate affordable solutions when the circumstances dictate that. Nextly, we've got doability. So our interventions have to be created in a way that people can deliver them. Again, from a kind of an abstract theoretical perspective, we can construct multi-component intervention plans and programs of support that are conceptually bound, elegant, and apt to be effective. But if no one can deliver them, then they're not going to really be associated with changing people's lives. Generalizable has to do with the extent to which an intervention or a set of intervention procedures can apply in different situations and different contexts. And there are some particular challenges associated with generalization across settings and contexts. So we can think about home and community. We can think about maybe home supported living services and vocational services. And then the final thing that we have to consider is scalability. And scalability has to do with scalability of a discrete intervention procedure, but also scalability at the systems level. So can we provide PBS service interventions at an intensity that is likely to address the needs of a population? arguably, where we are with that at the moment is that we're in one of those states of kind of being differentiated by postcode. So active support as a tier 1 intervention. Well, active support, I'm going to show you a slide in a minute that just outlines the commonalities and the history, but they really developed very independently of one another. Active support really has its origins in the 1980s and was designed not as an intervention for challenging behavior, but really as PBAS became more clearly defined in terms of prevention strategies and defined in terms of these tier 1 interventions, it came to be quite a strong candidate for developing tier 1 interventions. So the mechanism really is that the social environment is designed to promote the best quality of life outcomes possible. And the side effect of that is that it prevents the occurrence of challenging behavior. And the mechanism is pretty much the one that I've just been describing. How does it do this? Well, the focus really is on what we call engagement. And engagement is simply a way of describing the experience of doing things that are functional, that are meaningful, that are age appropriate and culturally defined, and enhance related outcomes such as autonomy, community involvement, that develop skills in regard to communication and open up possibilities for increasing the number, depth, and differentiation in relationships. And so we get this idea of promote and prevent being two sides of one coin. We can promote quality of life, as we discussed earlier, and simultaneously prevent either the occurrence in the situational context or the trajectory in terms of the lifespan and developmental context of challenging behavior. So what's the scope? What's the scope for quality of life? Quality of life, as defined by Shallock, has these three areas: well-being, independence, and social participation. And in regard to well-being, we think about emotional and physical well-being. Independence, we think about personal development and self-determination. Social participation, we're thinking about relationships, inclusions, and rights. And my contention, or my argument, my proposal, is that active support, when properly constructed and delivered, touches all of these areas. So here's the slide that gives a bit of background on the common heritage of active support and positive behavioral support. So normalization theory, or later became, where it got SRV in brackets, that stands for social role valorization. It was a values-based or a rights-based movement that really grew in the later part of the 1970s and became quite influential as a way of thinking about societal reaction to disability and what needed to happen in society to reverse some of these trends. And the characterization of the process was really captured in this idea of valuing people at risk of being devalued. And the proposal was that society puts distance and space between itself and members of its societal groups, if you like, that are at risk of being devalued, and that devaluation equals unfair and diminished quality of life and treatment by the rest of society. In terms of how to reverse some of these processes, the points, the levers were to do with inclusion, becoming clear in and expressing rights that people had to a quality of life and a range of opportunities similar to anyone else. Relationships, autonomy, competence, which is about being able to do things, image, how I see myself and how other people see me, and this idea of role building. Role building was really the the notion of investing in social roles that are valued by society in general. So rather than seeing and labeling people as disabled or consumers or dependent, that we can create social roles that, or emphasize social roles, because they already exist. You can emphasize social roles that characterize people as consumers, as contributors, and as active participants in society. Now, behavior analysis, there's a lot here to consider, but the fundamentals of behavior analysis that are consistent and selectively deployed in the PBS framework are those that are constructional. And that means, as I said, I think I mentioned this earlier, constructional is about adding to what people can do rather than taking away. Functional, so that these skills and opportunities that are added have value in a person's life, and then using approaches that are characterized as non-aversive in regard to building skills and supporting behavior change, and in regard to training staff. So these two strands were quite independent of one another, and at certain points in history have been quite fundamentally pitted once against the other. So proponents of the technological behavior analytic model were often at odds with those who were more driven by the values framework. But the context at the center of all of this was deinstitutionalization. And this was true for the UK, the USA, Australia, a lot of the Western world, Canada, New Zealand, etc. All really, these countries were, all of these countries were engaged in the process of deinstitutionalization, closing the large, congregate, long-stay hospitals that used to be the dominant model of care and replacing them with community-based services that are available to all in the mainstream of community life. So it's about quality of life, community involvement, and it was characterized in the UK by what we call the Ordinary Life series. So active support, some of the challenges associated with active support have to do with the implementation of active support and then maintaining it over time. One of the difficulties with active support implementation is that it's a training-based model, has been a training-based model for a long time. And training is a challenge because trainers are scarce. Experienced and skilled trainers are a scarce resource when we look at it at the population level. Training is expensive. Trainers are expensive, but the other costs are in regard to releasing staff to participate in training events. And one of the big problems is attrition. We have very high rates of turnover in many of our services. And so the turnover is forcing a continual retraining or a reinvestment in the training endeavor and experience. And this is evidenced in this paper that I'm citing here, where the intervention effects on a randomized control trial of active support were not apparent, but in the more detailed analysis, the participants in the intervention arm of the trial actually had not been trained because the extent of turnover in services removed all the trained staff from the team. So one of the potential solutions for this has been practice leadership, and this is a role that's been developed and explained over recent years. Now, this is where the app starts to become relevant, because an alternative or an additional provision could be app-based. And as we move into the digital age, we're all of us becoming more and more accustomed to using apps in our personal and working life. And it seemed that there was an opportunity for developing some support for staff teams, particularly to work in a more person-centered way and to work in a way that is more consistent within and across staff, so that an individual member of staff is more consistent from day to day over weeks and months, and that staff are more consistent with one another across a team. And the net effect of that is that it would create opportunities for people living in and using services to be more, as it were, in control, and to contact some of those quality of life things that we were talking about earlier. And the way we've kind of summarized this is in terms of belonging and connection, where belonging is about community presence, being present in a community, being part of a community. Connection has to do with relationships. Autonomy and control is about having some power and influence over things that happen on a day-to-day basis, and also the big things in life about where you live and who you live with and what you do for work and those sorts of decisions. Gifts and talents is about using the skills that you already have and using opportunities that are carefully kind of organized around day-to-day life to develop those talents and to become even better at doing things that you're good at, or to learn to do things that you can't quite yet do on your own. And then the fourth area is speaking, listening, and sense of self. So speaking, listening is communication, and sense of self is to do with how I see myself and how other people see me. So these ideas have been around for some time. Saunders and Spradlin, way back in 1991, proposed a system of activity planning and monitoring as a way of delivering behavior analytics services in what then was just kind of a fairly large, congregate supported environment. But the core kind of messages in there was just focused on what people can already do and help them with the things that they can't quite do yet. And this is one of the core kind of ideas in active support. Rather than focusing on what people cannot yet do, or focusing on behavior change mechanisms, let's work out what people can do and provide additional support and assistance when they need it. And that support and assistance is momentary, so that if you need more support today than you needed yesterday, then you simply receive that additional level of support. So what Saunders and Spradlin were proposing was really that with this active treatment model, as they called it, that the support for personal routines actually would translate into consistent and helpful support from staff. And it would empower people, enable people to take control. I could give you a little bit more anecdote on that if I had more time. I don't, so I'm going to skip. Choose activities that are meaningful or functional, age appropriate, and that are valued personally and culturally. So this means that meaningful and functional, not easy to say, activities are really the bread and butter of day-to-day life. So this is about looking to opportunities for people to do things that are present in all of our lives. They're not always present in supported living environments because those opportunities are often absorbed into what staff do. And so it's a way of switching from a model where staff are carers into a model where staff are providing support. And we call our folk active support staff now. That's their job title. Age and culture appropriate and valued really means that for adults with an intellectual disability, we should restrict these opportunities to things that match their chronological age, match a person's chronological age, and to look for the function in activity that matches a person's age. And this helps a person to see him or herself as an adult, and for other people to value that person as an adult, and to break down some of the stereotypes that people carry about the eternal child or the wholly innocent. So the power of personal routines really can be broken down into 3 levels, and this is what we've done with the app, which I'll explain to you shortly. The power and the benefits really start with what I'm calling here macro routines. We call these anchor activities. These are the things in life, and if you think about your own life, you'll be able to detect them very easily. Things that occur on a regular and recurring basis, things that are predictable, and activities or events in life where you could even know the day of the week without being able to name it or the time of the day without being able to read necessarily on a clock. So the kinds of activities I'm thinking about here that things like our morning routine, our evening routine, our bedtime routine, our mealtime routines. And then there are other things that we might have regular. So we might go to some social event on a Monday evening. We might do our shopping on a Friday. Those sorts of things. These are anchor activities that anchor as they belong to an individual and they have a place and a time. What's the benefit of the anchor activities? Well, once those are established and are supported in a consistent way, the balance of power for deciding on a day-to-day basis what to do and when to do it sits with the person rather than the staff who are mediating the support. And these routines apply equally on home and community-based activities. What they don't do is fill our day completely, and so we have this idea of filling in the gaps with incidental and short duration activities. And these are the kind of things that we all decide to do during the course of each and every day. So in between our anchor activities, we have incidental activities. We decide we're going to do this and then that and then the next thing. And again, these activities, because they're planned in the moment, are more apt to be spontaneous and there's more flexibility than in the anchors, but they still kind of fit broadly within these categories of home and community life. Now, one of the things that's quite striking is when you start to write down in either in a paper-based or a digital system how these opportunities look in the lives of people using services, it's quite striking how many gaps there are and what size of gap there are in people's days. There are lots and lots of there is lots of space in people's days where there's not much to do and not many opportunities for people to talk to. So the macro routines are the kind of fine grain bit. If you're familiar with task analysis, you could construct this as a task analysis, or you could think of it as being a script. And this is what we call it in the app. We call it scripts because they're a little bit like a script for staff to follow. So if you have a morning routine, generally, if you think about your own morning routine, you probably do it pretty much the same way every day, the same order. You may use the loo, take a shower, brush your teeth, these kinds of things tend to follow in a consistent manner. If we break that down and write it down and put it somewhere that's accessible for staff to view, then we can move to a position where staff are supporting a person in a more person-centered versus staff-centered way, in a way that is consistent to his or her preferences. And eventually, over time, through repeated practice, the person becomes more independent in those activities. So if you've got 22 staff on your team, it's, each staff has two ways. You can have your own way and the person's way versus 22 ways. If you're the person receiving support and you've got 22 staff on your team, then you've got 22 different ways of doing everything. And you're apt to be being told, no, not like that, when actually you're actually getting it right. So just to summarize, organizing the environment enriches people's lives with opportunity. It increases quality of life through engagement, autonomy, independence, skill, well-being, image perception, skill development and use. And we're also at the same time neutralizing these motivational contexts that have a history of being associated with behaviors that challenge. Then we've got skills teaching. Skills teaching is all about focusing some effort and input into teaching people skills. So if you have a learning disability, it means you have difficulty learning, and what we should be doing then is teaching. And I'm going to just very quickly mention performance feedback, because what we know from years and years and years of research is that feedback in terms of information about performance and outcome is a critical variable as far as day-to-day performance is concerned. So what I'm going to do now is just share my screen, and I'm going to go for a live sign-in for the app here. So I'm just entering information, password. I'm going to sign in here. Skip my two-factor. This is a test service, not a real service, and this is the screen for an individual who's not a real person, but we use this identity for the purposes of live demonstrations. So just to give you an idea, this is the screen that staff will see when using the app. It's designed to run on a tablet, but it will run on any device. So it'll run on laptop or desktop. I'm showing you on a desktop at the moment. Most of the controls are touch screen. I'm doing it with a mouse pointer, which is not optimal, but it's what we've got for the moment. So this tells me who's here today. These are my details. I can change my password and whatnot with this click here. This is notifications. So here I get messages. This is a help bar. So if I want to know how I do something, I had an incidental activity, it'll tell me how to do that here. Individuals, these are the three people who are sharing this test service environment. So this is Ben, a fictitious person. This is a picture of Ben. These are links to information about likes and dislikes. You can touch any of these and you get information. So it's kind of a digital one-page profile for Ben. The meat of the app is this page here, which is designed to look like a calendar, because we're most of us familiar with calendar views. This is the person who it is. This gives access to the profile. This is Ben's picture for today of the anchor activities that I mentioned, so the ones that occur routinely. And you can see that these are pre-populated, so we don't have to fill them in every day of the week. So here's Ben's morning routine. This little marker here says there's medication due at 7 a.m. And here is the medication pane. So this tells you what the medication is. Here's a way of just tracking medication that's being administered. But let's take the morning routine. Once this is being completed, we can either say it didn't happen as planned, or we can rate participation on this scale here. So let's say it was full participation. We can say who's the person providing the support. That was me on this occasion. Update that, and you'll see here that we have a different symbol in the box now that lets me know that the data have been updated and entered for this particular activity on this particular day. This is indicating who's done that. The S here says there's a script, and if we go here, we can see that there's a script. This is a fake script, obviously. It's just got, but it shows you can open up the script. If you need to remind yourself, rehearse, or follow the script, you can access it from there. If you want to add an activity, you can, here we've got the default is incidental. We can also update anchors. Let's pick a time to update. So let's say we'll go with 10 a.m. It's a 30-minute activity. It can be at home, which gives us these categories: domestic, personal, household, recreation. Or it can be community, which gives us integrated, non-integrated, leisure, functional, and occupational options. I'll stick with home. Choose a category. Let's say it's prepare, cook food, select an activity, make a drink. That's probably not a good example for 30 minutes, but and then I add it here. And you see it gets added onto the program here. Now this is overlapping this one at the moment because this is indicating a kind of a day service placement. The exclamation mark means data have not been updated yet. So you click on that and it does the same thing as the other window that I showed you a few moments ago. Now, let me go back to Ben. Whoops, I've gone too far. There we are. The other option we have is to add a short duration activities. So short duration activities are for people who tend to do things for a brief period rather than a sustained period. And short duration activity is here relating to 5 minutes. So I can add a short duration activity in exactly the same way as I did for a full activity. So let's just go with one. We can select a regular activity from this easy pick drop-down menu, or I can go the same way, select a category, select an activity, which is make a drink, add a short activity. And what it does this time is add it here. And it says here on this bar, 1. And what that means is we've got 1 short duration activity in there. We can have up to 12 in that 1 hour slot. So it allows us to populate this small area with a longer list of short duration activities as well. Okay, so if I click here, this shows me Ben and Ben's companions who share the house, and it shows there. So I can check across the environments to make sure everything is workable. Oh, I keep going too far. I'm sorry. Hang on, bear with me a sec. Test service.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
Sorry, I don't know if you heard that. That was Siri trying to communicate with me for some other reason. Back to individuals here. Ben Brown, the service activity planner. Okay, so here we've got the feedback, part of the feedback mechanism. So here we can generate information about Ben, and we can create other sorts of reports as well. But let's say we want to know the number of times spent each day. We say between this date and that date, and it'll generate information from the system in real time. If we want to know just about home, we can choose home or community, or we can have them combined, and that gives us some feedback on the lived experience. So the other part of this feedback loop has to do with wow moments. So wow moments is a kind of a digital repository. We can put into wow moments a title. We can put in some information about the event, the experience. We can add comments here, or we can have family members or managers, supervisors add comments. Here we can put photos, audio, video, whatever, to keep a record. And here we have tags, and these are ways of tagging allows you to do searches. Using this here, we can use these tags to search for events that have been recorded previously. Okay, let me just check the time. Oh, right, I'm getting right up toward the end. So what I wanted to show you, oh, whoops, sorry. Well, what I wanted to show you very quickly, I'll just show you the skills teaching, targeted learning plans. If you want to add a new learning plan, we simply choose an area, belonging, and connection. We choose a goal type, which is acquisition, generalization, opportunity. We say what we see. I used this example yesterday, say hello. We specify the health condition following a model. Let's say we say how often we want it to go, twice a day, and then how well do we need to be able to do it, 100%. Right? This generates the statement. We add it to the learning plan, and you see I've got it here twice because I did this yesterday. But here we got 28th of February. If I click on that, here's our recording. It's either as specified or it's as done, but we needed more help. Or if I forget, it's missed. If Ben says no, it's not done. And we keep going until the end of the week until we get this nice pattern. And when you see that, we know the goal has been attained. We can then, when the goal has been attained and we go to review, we can then schedule it for a maintenance probe that is sometime in the future, or we can go back to the we can go back to the original goal, modify this goal, and we have some options here. We can either roll it over, edit it, so we change the health conditions, say for example, or we can archive it, or we can delete it. And finally, I won't be able to show you this because I've not left myself enough time, but we've got two features that I'd just like to mention briefly to you. One, if I go back to individuals, and we've got a rapid assessment of function here, which will generate within 10 minutes a report that tells you about the behavior, about the most likely function, gives you some recommendations for intervention, and will produce a fully formatted downloadable PDF for either exporting or saving. And here we have some e-learning content. So these are little bite-sized modules that form into courses, and each course covers an area. So we've got the BAGS framework, we've got active sport, we've got an explanation of the environment here, and then targeted learning plans and how to use them. Right, so I'm sorry to have had to rush through that little bit.
Oh. We've lost Sandy. I wonder if he stopped sharing but instead clicked leave meeting. I've done that before, so we'll just wait and see whether Sandy rejoins us, because I can see that we've got a few questions to put to him. So bear with us, folks. Bless him. He'll probably come back into the participants list, won't he? Like he did before. Oh, Sandy. So I see a question I can answer in the chat. Thanks, Dan. Sandy's talk isn't a CEU talk. There is a way you can get a CPD certificate from us if that's something that you'd like to get. If the Eventbrite evidence isn't enough for your organisation, we'll put a link in the chat that you can use to access that if you would like to. Just trying to multitask, keeping an eye on the participant list to see if Sandy's rejoined or if he's disappeared completely. Recording should be available after the talk, so we have been videoing all the sessions. We do we need to check with the presenter that they're happy for us to post the talks after the event, so we'll watch this space. I suspect so for most of the presentations. I think all but one have said they'll be happy to have their presentations. I can't see Sandy. So I've just posted a link into the chat so that you can access a CPD certificate if you want to. That will take you to a box in which you can enter Sandy's name followed by your email address. CPD certificates are £8, which goes towards the sort of administration costs of the conference. So I wonder if he's had some Wi-Fi issues or something like that. Oh, panelist. Hang on a minute. I can see Sandy's back as a panelist. Let's just let's see. Asked to unmute. Asked to start video. That worked last time. So he's potentially there, but not able to speak to us at the moment.
Unmute.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
Andy, did you do the thing where you clicked exit rather than stop sharing? Because I've done that before.
Oh, did I? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Do we still have a little time? I don't know how much of the.
Yes. No, I mean, we have come to the official end of the session.
Yeah.
The next session start at 11:15. So
Right.
if you've got a bit of time and Sandra and I've got a bit of time and people want to hang around, then they're more than welcome to. And we
Yeah.
can do some of these questions. I see people are dropping off, but we have still got 43 people here. So, perhaps
All right.
if I sort of go to the first, at least couple of questions, if you've got a bit of time, Sandy, that would be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely, for sure.
Apologies, yeah, for the technical issues. It's always fun, isn't it, when you do things over Zoom? But first of all, thank you so much, Sandy. We really enjoyed that and actually really love the look of the app.
Great.
So we've got one or two questions, but I don't know if we'll get to ours. I'll go to the questions that are in the question and answer feature first. So Matt, I don't know if Matt's still here, but he's asked, are there adaptations to allow the individual themselves to add things to the schedule and make edits to the app?
Yeah. So the way the app is used varies person to person, setting to setting, context to context. But the way it's designed, and there are people doing this already in services who are able to interact directly with the device. Other people are in conversation, and we actually think the best way of populating those incidental activities and deciding on learning outcomes and whatnot is to do it conversationally. So, for example, you might have a mid-morning coffee, and at that point of the day, you might say, "Well, what are we going to do now? Our next thing is lunch. What are we going to do between now and lunch?" You have the conversation, you make the decisions, and then you pop it in the app, and that generates, as it were, the record. And it's a way of making choice really meaningful, because you can break down choosing. So rather than say, what do you want to do now? And you've got this kind of vast universe of possibilities and you're drowning in options, or you can't think of anything. Between those two extremes, you could say, well, between now and this time, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. Which would you like to do first? And so you transfer control of not necessarily selecting what to do, but selecting the order in which to do them. And of course, if you have people who have preferences for certain types of activity, you can then work motivationally with that person. You say, well, you can put the high preference one behind a low preference activity and use it that way. Yeah. So the short answer is yes, people can use this themselves.
I like that, like you described that aspect, sort of using it conversationally as something that you do together, as opposed to something you go in and fill in. Michael has asked about looking at the scripts a little bit more, and obviously that's going to be tricky within the time constraints. But is there some way you can go and explore a demo version or something like that of the app? Is there?
Yeah. So there are. We don't have an automated demo at the moment, but we can do live demos. So what I've done today, I can do in more detail and more depth in a one-to-one or a one-to-small group live demo, and then you can look at some better examples of scripts. So the one I put up was just gobbledygook because that's the one again. But we've got some better examples where it's a proper sequence of steps for say a morning routine. We also have customs as well. Customs I didn't really talk about, but customs are to do with those things that happen in the household. So most households have a kind of a usual way of doing things. Usually we sit down together for dinner. Usually we take breakfast on our own. Usually we have lunch on the it's just these kind of customs evolve over time, and we have very often sort of informal rules, like we always wash up straight after a meal, or we don't wash up until we've got nothing left to use. It's not to say one's right and one's wrong, but they're unique, and so once you start to explore customs and start to put those down, two things happen. One, it becomes, as it were, the property of the individuals whose house it is, rather than the staff imposing their rules. And it also then becomes more consistent, so people can take control. And we've seen examples of people going off to lay the table at lunchtime without being asked or told or instructed or help, just because it's the routine and it's how things unfold. And so, you know, you get that real meaningful transfer of autonomy. And these might seem like small things to us, but they're big things in people's lives when they're not present.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sandy. Just a couple of sort of ones in relation to sort of access and compatibility of things. Is it possible to allow different access to different users to protect data? Gillian has asked.
Yeah, it's the app is designed very robustly from that point of view. It has lots and lots of safeguards and controls in it. You, as a user, you would have what you have is an email address, a password, a PIN, and two-factor authentication to get in and out of the app. And in terms of data storage and whatnot, all of that is kind of siloed, so that there are no data leakages. And it's I'm going to give you the technical pen test. It has what's called a pen test. So you send this out to professional hackers, and they try to, as it were, hack the system, and then they give you a report on the robustness of the system. And we've done that and passed all of those tests.
That's great. That's great. And obviously numbers are dwindling. Just the last couple of the list here. Dan is asking again if Dan's still here. Does the app have compatibility with e-care planning platforms? Does it sort of merge with other?
Yeah, no, not at the moment. This is something that we're aware of. It's there are a number of care plan or care package apps out there already, but none of them do what this does. This is, I think, a very bespoke, unique product, or whatever you want to call it, app, you know. But integrating it with so there are some obvious points of connect where you would want information to move from one app to another seamlessly. We think we know that it's technically possible. There are two ways of doing it. You either have direct integration, or you integrate via a third-party app. You know, so you have your app, another app, and a third-party app does the translating. We haven't been able to progress that yet. We're actually still building features. So at the moment we're enhancing, you know, that kind of subscription model, and we're also enhancing some of the features of the app. So we want to do more on behavioral observation and recording than we have in there at the moment, to sit alongside the functional assessment stuff. And so, you know, what we're trying to do at the moment is balance those different agendas, but integration is definitely on the horizon.
Fantastic. We've got the price about the price. The question about the price. So, what does it cost to gain access? Can you purchase access for multiple users? All of those questions.
Yes, you can. Yes. Yes. So what we have is a subscription model at the moment. Yeah. When we set out to build this app, we said we would match it to the price of a coffee. So it's one coffee per person per week. A cost of coffee, you know. So that it's not an economic model, really. It's not going to pay back the investment in cash terms, but the app owners are not really doing it for money. They're doing it because they think it's the right thing to do. And this is really to cover the cost of running the support and continued development of the app. So it's £3.50 per person per week at the moment, which translates into £182 for a full year subscription, and that gives you access to everything plus technical support and advice if you need it.
Presumably people, I mean, obviously if they need to get in touch with you, can link either directly with you or via us, and we can sort of link you up.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Yeah, so we have that. I don't know if you saw the my talk there. I got s.toogood at PBAS. We call it PBAS, which is Positive Behavioural and Active Support. PBAS PBAS.app.
Yes.
That's so if you drop me a line to that address, I can pick that up.
Yeah, that's
there's also a website, and there is a YouTube link as well, which I should have put up, but I didn't think to do it. But you could probably search it on YouTube.
yeah, and we can circulate some of this stuff or put it with your slides or something like that when
All right. Yeah. Great.
if you send that over to us, and we can make sure that's available to people.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Especially since we're down to 16 people now. More
I still quite. Yeah.
But thank you so much, Sandra. Luckily, Sandra and I don't have another talk at 11:15, so we don't mind too much hanging on and asking questions. But it's been really valuable. And lots of people in the chat saying thank you as well. But lots of people have had to move on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and sorry about the mishap with the.
I think it's both ends, to be honest, Sandy. We got there in the end, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay, and thank you very much for facilitating this. Appreciate that as well, both of you. Yeah, it's really good.
No problem. Thanks, Sandy.
See you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.